Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third Major League tournament. I am E. McNeil, dev of Iron Lights, and with me is one of our community members and mods, Electro Spaghetti. Hello, Electro.
Greetings, I'm back.
Electro kindly volunteered to help commentate again. I originally was going to miss it, leaving it to Electro to commentate alone, but amazingly, my backyard hangout session that I accidentally scheduled for this time got rained out. So, hooray for social distancing. That means that I get to commentate instead. And I'm really looking forward to it because I wanted to make sure that we catch all the major league tournaments. I think of these as kind of the big official, measurements of who's really on top. So they're always very exciting.
Always definitely some of the most. It's always definitely some of the most enjoyable matches because it's the cream of the crop versus the cream of the crop every single match.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody here has won in the top three of one of our minor league tournaments. So they've already kind of narrowed down the pool of players to some of the top players in the community. And, really the only limitation is just, maybe some people weren't able to make it. But it looks like we have a pretty good turnout. We have 6 matches that were just posted in the chat that is limited to the winners of the previous tournaments. So they're going to be starting soon. We're just waiting for some of those matches to connect, and then we're going to get going. In the meantime, I just want to throw this out to everybody in the chat who I'm seeing on Twitch right now. Hello, thank you for watching. And as usual, we'll be taking questions, so I can answer any questions about development stuff, or Electro and I can just chat about game balance and what's going on in the community. But please post any questions that you have in the Twitch chat, and I can try to answer those and satisfy your curiosity. So, for example, before this all got started, we got a question from the Omega asking, how do you feel about hook swords as a weapon? That sort of depends on what kind of hook swords you mean. If you're talking about the ones that are just shaped like a hook, then I think that that's pretty cool, but I don't know if they would be unique enough compared to some of our other weapons to be a playable weapon as opposed to, a variation or one for the AIs. If you're talking about the kind that you could like connect together and then swing around like on a hinge, then I think that would be pretty badass, but it's also a much bigger task. And I don't know if that's something that I'll be able to do in the near future, mostly because the kind of like joints that we usually work with are sort of elastic. Like, if you notice the string or the chain on the flail connecting the ball to the handle is kind of stretchy, which is, it's not realistic, but that's kind of what we have to do to make it work with the physics in Iron Lights. Scrolling through, let me see. We also got a question from Nodex Ali. What about meteor hammers? Have you ever thought about those? That's actually, so for those who don't know, a meteor hammer is a name for a weapon in Chinese martial arts. It's basically a really heavy ball on a string or a chain. And I think that would be really cool. There's some stuff that I was thinking about that would make it meaningfully different from just a whip or a flail type weapon. And I haven't actually, set that up. I haven't tried it, but it would be really interesting to set that up so that you could grab different parts of the chain and therefore like alter the length of the weapon, how much reach it's got. But of course, that's still just sort of speculation for the future. And we're going to have to save the rest of that speculation for a little later because it looks like we have connected to our first match, and that is going to be joining. We're going to be joining that in a second. This is going to be against, B against Shadow Soul. So in one moment, once they pick their classes, we'll be joining that.
And because it's a Swiss tournament, we'll see more of all of the players rather than some immediately being dropped.
That's a good point, yes. Yeah, this is a Swiss-style tournament, which means it's not going to be single elimination. They're going to play multiple rounds, and players are not going to be eliminated. Instead, they're accruing points as they get wins. So we'll get to see sort of who floats to the top across all of these matches. So here we are. we have Shadow Soul taking, looks like the Ninja, versus B. I love these outfits, by the way. Also on a Ninja, we have a Ninja mirror match. Very interesting.
Out of Ninja has a very flexible defense, as it's stated. And I think the interesting thing is Ninja versus Ninja is probably Ninja's worst matchup on
Well,
defense.
I see what you mean. It can be very tricky to block Ninja, in the best of situations. We're seeing B actually do a very good job of it. The mirror matches, in some sense, they're inherently fair, but that doesn't mean they're going to be easy to work with for certain players or for any given matchup. Some classes are just going to be better on offense or defense, and the Ninja, yeah, it's going to be very tough to block. I'm going to be curious to see if these players do a lot of ranged attacks over the course of this match. And now B's back on offense.
I would say definitely because of the nature of Ninja, most of the time most of the skill difference is on defense, and the Ninja v Ninja fight is just all about looking in two places at once and almost attempting to mirror your opponent's movements.
Yeah, I think that's right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're sort of saying like on attack, players can kind of like just go from two directions at once, try to just get the hits in as fast as possible. Whereas on defense, it's more of a challenge to block that.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about that is if you are too predictable on attack, if you just get into a kind of figure eight or repetitive pattern, then your opponent can learn to mirror that very easily and get a perfect block against it. So I do think it's important that the players who are on attack have to mix it up constantly. Also, it seems to be the best class for dancing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Like, all of the classes can dance, I will be honest, in their own way. It's just, you've got to think of more creative solutions for some.
Mm-hmm.
As I saw in a GIF posted a couple of weeks back, out of all of the classes, I would say Knight is actually the best to play like an air guitar, but it can, as proven here, it can be very much done on Ninja, and I've also seen it in the last tournament being done on Reaper.
Well, of course, the Ninja is the only one who can play the air guitar, though.
Yes.
Oculaby is now taking the lead, and I think that a lot of that is going to be attributable to this really impressive defense we've seen. Even though this is a mirror match, in the attacks we've seen so far, B has gotten almost a really fantastic ratio. I wouldn't say almost all, but a really great ratio of blocks versus letting hits through. And that's allowed them to really get an advantage in the health, which they then use to charge up to full energy. A dangerous move, but it seems like they're showing a lot of confidence. And without much health left over, Shadow Soul is going to have a hard time getting the energy to punish that. Shadow Soul comes in for a revenge attack, gets some good hits, but still just lacks the total amount of energy necessary for a long, really effective counter to B's defense so far. That allows B to charge up some energy and go in and get that final hit. Thrusts those guitars into the ground and gives a little bow there at the end. Good sportsmanship. That was an interesting match. I like seeing mirror matches, and I don't know the last time I've seen a Ninja mirror match, especially among high-level players. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what Shadow Soul chooses to ban.
I would say that these two and possibly Sync 114 are the only players I can think of that actively main Ninja. So it's nice seeing it get some more love. Well,
I'm glad that they were the ones that we get to
at
watch
high
here.
level.
Yeah, I'm glad they were the ones we got to watch. It's interesting though. The loser of these best of threes can ban after losing a round. However, both players have chosen to switch out of Ninja. So it's not clear what the ban was necessarily, but Shadow Soul choosing to switch from Ninja to the Crusader using the flail versus B now using the Knight with the Greatsword. This is an interesting matchup because that Knight has the ability to kind of bash down that shield as we're seeing now. But the flail can be very tricky to block. So I think this is going to be another case where the particular level of skill on defense is going to be the big determinant. Ooh, a couple of big headshots.
Very nasty headshots.
Yeah.
It's coming in from some tricky angles.
Absolutely. Shadow Soul gets a nice hit there, but chose to go in pretty early with a relatively short attack, but does land a couple of hits. Yeah, B again choosing to be very aggressive here. Charge up to almost half energy, or more than that. And then a very aggressive attack, probably trying to make hay while the sun shines. That is, while the shield is mostly battered down, trying to get those good hits in against the health.
A couple of very nasty hits, but once again, just the main issue with Crusader is if people can put out some fancy footwork against it, you will miss 90% of your shots.
And yeah, that's a good observation. B was doing some good dodging there.
And while Crusader can put out some major damage, doing 1.5 times roughly the amount of damage of each Night Swing, when you only hit that one hit every 5 seconds compared to Knights every 2 seconds, it's very obvious which one has got the higher damage output.
Yeah, I think that we saw a very aggressive style coming out from B throughout that match, both in the first round with the ninjas and in that second round, especially once they got that shield down to just a little acorn-sized nub. There was nothing that was going to be able to stop future hits, and so B was able to charge up and attack and charge up and attack. And despite a valiant defense, without a shield, the Crusader for Shadow Soul just had very little chance of being able to block all of that. So I think it was an interesting and effective strategic move from B, as well as showing some really good pure skill. So great job, both players. A solid first round, and B's going to get those points. We're going to be jumping in, it looks like, to another round in progress, another matchup.
And for a night match, though, that was a very lacking amount of the techniques I've seen recently that have caused a lot of heavy discussion in the community.
Yes, I've heard tell of that. There's night techniques that are being developed. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it looks like we have Chip right now on the night, and maybe can do a demonstration for us versus Loxus in with the pink Reaper. Looks like Loxus is able to get some good blocks in there using both the blade of the scythe as well as the shield bars. Chip lands a few good hits, but doesn't quite even up the score here. And we're not sure which round they're in currently, but considering that we started a match in progress, I'm guessing second or third. So let's see. Oh, Chip does a little charge up and then a quick attack, but doesn't look like they landed any hits there, meaning Loxus had a great energy regen still going. Cuts it off to try to land a big attack and might be trying to put it away right here. This is a tough matchup for the Knight on defense. It's hard to be able to get that blade on the scythe, blocked in time.
In this matchup, I would say Knight's greatest tool would be the size of its weapon and how far out it can reach with it. Because usual techniques like hanging guard end up not working, because the Reaper can very easily come from above as it can from below or the side or any angle.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, if you look at the stats that we collect, then the Knight actually does perform well against the Reaper overall. But I think that is a matter of players being able to blast through the shield bars on the Reaper. At a certain point, the Reaper, if they lose their shield, it can have a very, very hard time blocking anything from the Knight. And that's of course a common strength of the Knight, being able to just be unstoppable with those double blades. Nevertheless, the Reaper from Loxus was able to take that match, and so I'm guessing again that was the second or third match. So So win those points as well. So we're going to wait until we have another match. We might be ready to start a second round of matches. I'll let Proximo keep us updated on that once they get going. In the meantime, I'll look again towards the Twitch chat. And
I want to say something.
Yeah,
that's
please.
a question that's been asked by not Ollie, which is, are they able to use voice chat? I can tell from my own personal experience that they very much so can. It's just that the spectator client does not pick it up.
That's right. Yeah, we can't be part of that voice chat discussion. But if the players are using Oculus headsets, as the vast majority of Iron Lights players are, then they'll be able to use Oculus voice chat to connect to each other. So we don't know if they're chatting with each other or not, frankly. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the night stuff that you were just bringing up. So you were telling me, I've seen a couple of GIFs and heard some rumors, but I have not been as active on the Discord. I've been keeping my head down in an ocean of code and working on new features for the next Iron Lights update. So I don't know, why don't you just inform me live about some of what's going on with the night?
So essentially, what's happened is, because it's, from what I can see, because it's essentially the slowest weapon in the game, its physics is the most unstable, if you will, and that ends up meaning it's usually the class that can have its physics bent in ways you wouldn't expect it to be, and broken. For example, one of the popular ones right now is a form of fainting, where essentially the blade can carry its speed and turn on a dime to... I've seen it happen to me myself, and the blade just went from top right of near my head and just zigzagged across me incredibly quickly, faster than I could move my weapons, and then I couldn't tell which side it was going to hit me on. And it's things like that that have essentially turned night meta into a guessing game, because it's honestly almost because you have no idea which side it's going to hit or when it's going to hit. You just have to guess and hope you hit it, so it's unfortunately not looking very good.
Well, I will have to take a look and try it out and see sort of what can be done, and the extent to which it's just sort of unfair or unfun to play against. This has come up with other classes, and I think it's actually interesting. The physics on the knight, on the greatsword, have not actually changed that much, and so I think the knight got a very slight buff in the previous patch. My guess is that inspired a lot of top players to sort of reevaluate it, give it another chance, and then that ends up with more players trying out new techniques and discovering things that frankly have been there for a very long time. And there's a great tradition of this, especially with the knight, where at the very beginning in the beta, before the game came out, the knight was considered just the worst class. It was too slow. Nobody was able to win with it. And then we had one of our players, Rukafelth, showed up and basically started demolishing everybody with the knight and proved that it was in fact the strongest class that needed to be nerfed. So I think it's interesting.
I think I do agree.
To see these things emerge. Yeah.
As someone who's found like the hardest class to pick up, I honestly don't know what happened. It just clicked with me one morning. But what ended up happening with me for Knight is I was swinging it, and even though I was trying my best to be as slow as possible, two-handed, trying to make sure I'm cutting the wind and so on, it was just at low level, it's almost impossible to play. And then you get to high level, and suddenly people can just wave it around faster than it probably should be, and essentially they just abuse and exploit the physics in ways that, as a dev, you wouldn't think about, because you respect your own game and play it how it's intended to be played. And all the other players just treat it like a sack of dirt and kick it around all over the place and bust it wide open.
I think it's unexpected, but it's not something I've always been reluctant to label things as exploits or, against the spirit of the game, just because this is you know, I tried to define Iron Lights as a competitive game, and I think that if there's something that's in the game, it's built into the physics that makes something more effective. It's not my job. I can't blame players for using those things, and so it's definitely the case that sometimes I will need to change the physics. But I always like to sort of note that I don't blame players for finding exploits or for figuring out ways to use the physics for their advantage. It looks like we've got a new match, and we're going to be hopping into that right now. So tune in. Looks like we've got Loxus again in that adorable pink setup, and Toaster Chan in the yellow and gold.
His highlighter set, as he called it.
Yes, I believe that was me or Jeff who coined that in one of the previous tournaments. Oh, it looks like Loxus is on the duelist.
And Chips and Toaster's going knight. I'm having fought Toaster yesterday, experimenting with some of these knight exploits. I'm honestly terrified of how this match is going to go.
Well, I think if I were Loxus, I'd be nervous no matter what, just because Toaster is a well-established, very successful member of the community. We've seen him do very well in previous games. So, yeah, this first attack coming out, it looks already very vigorous. Loxus is able to get some good blocks. A lot of those first hits were able to come in, but now... Oh, I spoke too soon. It looks like Toaster is still landing a lot of good hits, so it's going to be a matter of whether Loxus can keep up.
I'm not getting a very good frame rate on the stream, so I'm finding it hard to see precisely what's happening. But I am seeing some of those techniques that I saw used against me that yesterday being put into use here. Toaster was... Oh, here we go.
Well,
Refreshing that up and down movement is literally refreshing the blade right beside their body. And that's what I mean. The best solution is to compromise and attempt to block half the shots, because you can't move it fast enough you can't move your weapons fast enough to go into a position to actually block it.
Well, Loxus is going to have to figure something out just to stay alive here. It looks like Toaster has used up all of his health trying to charge up and attack again and again and again. And I think we saw the same sort of aggression that we saw out of B in the previous matches, where they were just getting incredible amounts of energy and trying to break down the shield, in this case the buckler, and just leave the opponent without a solid defense. And it looks like Toaster was able to follow that through all the way to the end. Just incredible levels of aggression, charging up and attacking constantly, leaving Loxus no room to get serious attacks of their own in. So a very effective strategy from Toaster.
Yeah, with an offense like that, when he was playing against me, he was specifically practicing the technique, so I was seeing it very clearly.
Get a little wave there.
I was seeing it very clearly, so I was able to recognize when he was doing it and when he was just mixing it into his attacks. And quite honestly, it's simply terrifying.
Well, I might have to invite Toaster to a special exhibition match or to play against me, so I can experience that firsthand. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see it show up in the wild, and I don't know. I almost feel like players who are able to figure out new techniques, even if it's ultimately decided that they're strategies that need to be nerfed, it's interesting to see them in the wild, and I think it's fair to give players a chance to sort of use them in a ranked setting.
To say, there was a samurai ban, so Loxus was fully expecting to go up against this knight again.
And interestingly, he's chosen to go the knight. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Toaster again doing those kinds of
point blank
thrusting attacks. Yep.
Point blank refreshes.
I'm
It's,
already
with as much movement and as attempt to dodge and block as possible, it's still just an insane amount of damage and incredibly difficult to block.
And it looks like even though there's no shield being used on defense, Toaster is still choosing to go with that very aggressive um, charge up and attack kind of style. Loxus, though, charges up for an attack of their own, only gets one hit in, a solid hit, but nevertheless has a little bit of vulnerability left over. So Toaster is able to do a bit of extra damage there and still has, a very solid advantage in terms of the health and energy situation. Loxus going in for this one final hit, gets a great hit, but has to know that they're on their last legs here. The aggression and the speed of the damage output from Toaster. Oh,
See,
he's given a
even
little
he
clap.
knows. Even Toaster knows how stupid this is. So he's just trying to show just this is this is something that definitely needs to be fixed at some
Well,
point,
I
because
am
even
rapidly
Toaster
being
agrees that
persuaded.
it's nuts.
It is interesting that Loxus chose to ban. You said the samurai.
I
Was
think
that
it's
posted in Discord?
yeah, that was posted in Discord. I think it was just to say it was just to essentially black ban a neutral class that neither of them were going to be playing,
Mm-hmm.
and to essentially pass on the ban.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to be interested to see in future rounds whether other players are going to be banning the knight, especially if some of those players are following along on Twitch right now as we're streaming this live, and maybe are potentially hearing about some of the events that are happening in the other matches. Of course, we saw Loxus at the tail end of their fight in the round one matches with a convincing win. So for Toaster then to use this really aggressive style and take those matches so quickly does make that style of knight a very scary prospect to be up against. I am checking the Twitch chat. I haven't been able to, I've been distracting myself, so I haven't been able to scroll up and catch some of the previous questions.
I thought it was Toaster and me commentating.
Sadly, no. We have just humble me, E. McNeil, and Electro Spaghetti. All right, I'm just checking the Twitch chat for previous questions. B asks, do you think cheesecake is a pie or a cake? I'm going to go with cake, but I don't like cheesecake, so I have to say I'm somewhat neutral on that question. Very astute question, though, for Iron Light's relevance. If anybody has other questions, please post in the Twitch chat. I'm just scrolling through trying to catch up. Oh, B asked that a second time. I see. Sorry about that. I clearly missed out on that. Eggy Bowl 1 asks, I want to know your opinion on balance in the community. And what do you think about a weekly checkup on balance where you can have a poll channel on Discord where you ask if all classes are balanced? Those who are not, we discuss in maybe another channel. And maybe we could have a channel like the Preview Test Builder Live called Balance, where you don't have to play test, but we do, and we give you feedback. I think that there might be room for something along those lines, in that I do very much depend on the community for opinion on balance. There's basically, I'll sort of explain my thought process. Every time I do a major update, or really any update, I take the opportunity to do a pass on balance changes. And there's two sources that inform that. One of them is the class balance channel on the Discord, where I go through and I read everything that's been written there, and I try to see sort of how the conversation has evolved, and what the prevailing opinions are. Then secondly, I have the stats that are collected via Unity Analytics. And what those are collecting is the win rates of each different matchup, class versus class. And one of the nice things that can do is I have it split up between unranked matches, low skill, medium skill, and high skill matches. And so I can actually see which classes are performing better, against particular types of opponents, or which are more successful in low ranks versus high ranks. And that's kind of context that I use in combination with all the feedback from the community. So then I'll make changes. It goes into a preview test build, and then I'm listening very carefully for any feedback that I get from players during that preview. So in terms of changing that process, I agree that there probably could be better progress and sort of more accuracy on balance if it was on a faster cadence, like a weekly checkup, as you suggest. However, I frankly I don't think I can keep up with that. Just in terms of like the dev hours that we have, and because it's such a small team, I basically have to switch between focusing on kind of short-term quick changes like balance and longer periods of keeping my head down and implementing new stuff where I kind of the game usually gets in kind of a disorganized state as things are half done. There are menus with placeholder things and features that aren't complete and look wrong, and those I have to I feel like work on for a month or however long straight through. So I don't think that I could do something like a weekly checkup.
One thing I have noticed, though, is what usually ends up happening is after every update, after every balance change, the community goes back to saying basically, oh, well, yeah, everything is relatively balanced right now, we're happy with this, that, and the other. This might still need a tweak, but that's it. And then people say, like, a couple of weeks later, maybe this got too hard a nerf, or this wasn't nerfed enough. And then by the time we're waiting for the next update, around about now, everyone's back to saying, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, and this is broken.
Well, the scary thing that is never something that I want to be the case, but they might be right. A lot of the time, stuff might be broken, but how broken it is like a combination of the actual facts on the ground, the physics of the weapon, the balance, in the actual variables in game, combined with the knowledge that players have of different techniques and what they can do with it, and the understanding of what matchups are strong, etc. So it's possible that the game was balanced based on the community's understanding of it, and now that certain new techniques are coming out, some classes are becoming overpowered, or it's the balance situation is changing, is shifting constantly. So I will be keeping an eye on it. I will be making changes, relevant to stuff that we're seeing today or that are discussed on the Class Balance channel. I've also gotten some DMs talking about concerns of different balance issues. So, yeah, just I guess the message I have is just rest assured that it is all going to be taken into account, and we'll be trying to, as always, get the game perfectly balanced in the next update. And that's never actually achievable, but we can get close.
Any rumors on the next class then? Because I know a lot of people. I swear, even within a week of Samurai coming out, there are some people asking when's the next class gonna be released.
I understand why. The class is like, it's like a whole different way of playing the game. Well, okay. So the truth is, I'll level with y'all about what's going on in development right now. So Oculus offered to help localize the game with translation and testing support for Iron Lights to French, German, Spanish, Japanese, and Korean. And I think that's going to be awesome. But it was a ton of work, and getting that all set up has been a huge portion of the time that of the dev work that has gone into this update. It also comes with a more solid deadline because we are trying to coordinate with Oculus to get that feature out and get the localized version ready by a certain time. So what that means is that I am now trying to figure out how much I can include in the next update realistically and still get everything done. And I can't just delay it as I might with other updates. So I still want to be careful, and I'm still not going to commit definitely to having a new class in this update. I will say I think people will be pretty happy with the update, and that I think if we don't end up being able to put a new class in there, then it will be coming relatively, soon thereafter. Probably we'd follow up with an update that just introduces that class. But it's not necessarily going to be all completed in time. I'm still holding out hope.
I think it's going to be interesting though, because usually right now I can expect if people are going to use voice chat, they're going to be talking in English, and
Yes,
when
so,
we
yeah,
start
that might
adding
be.
in localization, etc., it goes all wonky.
That said, it might be interesting if you have an opponent who you're on voice chat and they speak a different language. You're not any worse off than not having voice chat at all, I suppose. So, you can
I
at least
mean,
cheer and, I don't know,
yeah, and
figure it out.
I think some statements have become universal,
Hmm. Well,
even though,
but
for
we're about to jump
example,
into. Sorry, we're about to jump into a new match, but just really quick, I wanted to answer your question of teasing a class. I'm not going to do that. I am going to say that the class that we're working on is one that I consider very dangerous, where it's a little more wild or hard to handle than some of our previous classes, and that's why I'm being so careful with it. So it'll be interesting to see how people use it once it comes out. All right, looks like we have the Omega on Monk versus Oh Yeah on the Monk. Both players are in white, but the Omega has that charcoal accent and did a really cool little intro pose for us there. And it's starting off with some bow and arrow ranged attacks.
everyone loves monk spins.
Oh yeah, that's the
And
core of the class.
And here we are with spins on both offense and defense. I will say, the interesting thing that I've had from my experience with Monk is you almost need a different defense strategy for every class. Because while something like, say, on Knight, the hanging guard might be good for other knights and samurais and duelists and so on and so forth, I often find I have to do something completely different for every single class with the monk stuff.
That's interesting. I hope that is fun to play that way.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely interesting and not too much of an extra taxing on trying to learn the class.
Looks like
Because they're
these
all
two
still
players are
relatively
keeping it.
similar.
They're keeping it relatively even so far.
It's more I have three different methods and apply that, and each method works to varying degrees against different classes, and I modify each method depending on which class I'm going up against.
In this case, it looks like the Omega is using a relatively consistent strategy of keeping that staff twisting and spinning, so that they're spinning it back, not waiting to see if they've made contact with it or not, trying to rely on speed to get a solid defense, rather than trying to sort of play it by ear, stop and turn back, and based on whether or not it connects or not.
I do usually think that is the best way to go in a monk mirror match, is because the thing with ninja is while it may be fast and get out a lot of hits, it does so in bursts usually, unless they deliberately stagger their katars, which is usually not a good thing to do. Whereas with the monk, it's usually just a constant stream of hits. So you have to
Mhm.
have a constant stream of defense refreshes in order to try to counter that.
Yeah, and I think that in this case, Oh Yeah was able to break past that, and I think that a lot of it comes down to predictability, where if you know that the opponent is going to attack a certain way, then you can counter that very effectively. But if the opponent knows that you're going to defend a certain way without changing, they can adapt to that. And really, whichever player is thinking one step ahead is going to be able to actually land more hits. So I don't know whether or not that's really the case in this fight, but it's interesting that we saw several mirror matches over the course of the day here, and we had the Katars, we had the Knights, and then the Monks. A good range of classes. Going to be interesting to see what they choose now.
Crusader v Reaper.
Again,
As
both
I-
players have chosen to change classes.
And as this, like I said, with this match coming up in the last live stream we did, the last tournament we did, the both classes often have often have the easiest time blocking each other, usually because their disjointed hitboxes work in somewhat similar ways.
Hmm.
So while I'm not really seeing it here, but while a Reaper can have a fair amount of more ease than most classes reaching out to hit the ball with the scythe blade, it yeah.
It looks like the Omega was able to land a couple of really solid hits there, and then tried to get the jump with a quick charge up while Alya was charging up. But Alya, nevertheless, has kept it pretty even and now has a full bar of energy, while the Omega's got quite a lot of vulnerability. So, yeah, I think that it's a soft target. Alya is going to try to really take the lead in this attack right here. And so far is landing enough hits, including 848 damage headshot, to really capitalize on that and make it happen.
The issue is Omega still has enough air, still can charge up to make a decent attack to
And
tear
yeah.
a huge chunk out of Olya's health as well.
And each
And-
one of those hits looked so painful. But Alya was able to block those last 3 hits though, and now again is maintaining an advantage on any metric that you could look at. So still seems to have the upper hand, but the Omega was definitely giving them a real run for their money there. Oh, just
There it is.
barely able to get that last hit in. Congrats to Alya. Great job being able to sneak around that defense. Those are two, hard to block classes. Okay.
Yeah,
We will see if there's other matches that we can hop into, but until then, we can keep chatting with Electro and taking questions from the Twitch chat.
it appears Foxy, one of the other Discord moderators, and is currently maining Samurai to my knowledge, disagrees on my idea of Hanging Guard being good against Samurai. And I will say, my current in-game rank is Gold 2, so I'm honestly not one of the best in the game, so my opinions aren't always the most accurate, but I often look around and listen and see what I hear as well and mix that into my own personal perspective and experiences. So while
Taking
I'm
the
not
outside view.
while I'm not an expert on what is good against what and so on, it's usually there's some groups that you can usually put things into.
Mm-hmm. I should also note on the topic of Hanging Guard that I've experimented with a slight change in mechanics that might disincentivize Hanging Guard, which would change things up quite a lot. But it looks like we've got another match that we're hopping into, Real Virtuous versus Rocket 135. So I'll stop talking about that and start talking about this match. It looks like we have Rocket with the Duelist versus Real Virtuous on the Knight. Is that? Yeah. Real Virtuous, aka Ragnolf. Rocket looks to have the advantage here.
However, I will say I can see from here that shield is very tiny, so Ragnar might still be able to pull this back.
And that's
simply
what I
on
was
the
just going to say.
virtue that Rocket can't defend.
Real Virtuous might have an issue just having enough energy to actually capitalize on that. But you're absolutely right. The health of the shield is kind of a hidden health bar. It's another metric by which we can consider who's really ahead. And so Real Virtuous can't be counted out yet, especially if they're able to get big, long attacks that can get through a lot of shield health and then get through that to the opponent underneath. And it looks like they were able to start landing hits, but only at the tail end of that attack. So although Real Virtuous does take the lead briefly in terms of health, Rocket is not going to let them keep it, it seems, and goes in for a nice long melee attack of their own.
Solid defending with some fancy footwork is keeping him alive, but I don't think it's enough.
With only a sliver of health left, I think you might be right. That was a very aggressive attack, a lot of sort of quick jabbing thrust attacks from Rocket, and it looks like they've paid off, and now Rocket's going to try to get one last hit and put it away. Great defenses from Real Virtuous. Ragnoff able to block several of those hits, but of course, that greatsword is a relatively slow weapon, so Rocket is able to put it away, and it looks like that was the last round of their match. So congrats to Rocket on taking that one. Okay.
People think you really love the word capitalize.
I do. Well, I usually have one or two words that become kind of crutch words, where I just keep repeating them. A couple of streams ago, it was punish. I kept saying that so-and-so is going to punish, and then the other person is going to punish that. I need to learn some synonyms. Maybe I'll just keep like a thesaurus tab open.
I do that a lot as well. I've found, especially in the past, in busy social situations where people are constantly cutting over each other, I end up putting words in front of my sentences just to specifically try to grab people's attention to say I'm talking before actually getting into what I'm saying. So
yeah, we're getting a bit off of the Iron Lights topic, but I have to add on that I did debate in high school and college, and I learned that they try to train you to not use ums and ahs and crutch words like that, and I ended up just developing more fancy crutch words like essentially or basically, because essentially you can put essentially anywhere in a sentence, and essentially it always kind of makes sense, and essentially makes you sound smarter, even though it's not actually adding any content to the sentence. So yeah, when you're trying to keep up a pattern like this, I'm probably going to end up repeating words like capitalize and punish.
Basically, I ended up really annoying one of my friends by constantly saying basically. Every time I were to mention the word, they would just glare at me.
Well, I guess ultimately the moral of this story is this is an amateur production. I may be the dev of the game, but I'm not a professional commentator. So not that I feel like anybody really minds, but we'll do our best and hopefully make this as entertaining as we can. Turning to the Twitch chat for more questions, I see B asks again if I would consider cheesecake a pie or a cake. I think you missed it, but I did answer earlier that I would say cake, but I also don't like cheesecake, so, whatever. Electra, do you want to weigh in on that one?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I've ever had cheesecake before.
Oh my. Well, there you have it. You have two non-cheesecake fans. I'm sorry, B. Faith asks, did Rocket win? The answer was yes. The Omega asks again if about how I feel about hook swords. I did answer this earlier. I'm sorry that you missed it. But basically, I think it might be a cool weapon for an AI, but I want it to be unique enough for, compared to the other classes for playable weapons. And so I'd probably only do hook swords if they were the kind that you could link together and sort of use it like it's on a hinge. The problem is that that's really tough to do with the physics as they exist in game, where the joints are very elastic. So I would say probably not. Wady Chip asks, will Toast get a circle hat? So this, I think, is referencing a request Toast made to me before about one of the champion helms. These are the rewards that go to the people who get first place in our... no, I'm sorry. This is something else. I was confusing that with a request I got separately. Or did I? Sorry, I'm now confusing myself.
The circle
hat. No.
Circle hat was based on people's requests for their own custom Major League champion helms.
Okay, this is what I was thinking of. Yeah, he had a request for a helm that was basically just a giant sphere that did look very funny. So the champion helm that exists right now was intended to be the one reward for everybody who makes it to the major leagues. Just because I don't think that I can manage the extra work of being able to add new helms, especially by request. In this case, it would be a very easy helm to add, but I don't want to set a precedent, basically. And I also would be concerned about adding stuff that sort of doesn't work with or doesn't fit the existing sort of style of the game. So the truth is that I'm leaning against. However, I don't want to be too disappointing. So I will say that as an offshoot of that discussion, I've been thinking about ways to sort of spice up the rewards for the Major League champions. And I have an idea in mind. I don't know if I should just come out and say it because I haven't sort of decided for sure. But I guess I'll just tease that an interesting extra reward will probably be added to the Major League champion treasure hoard. And I would give that to everybody who has won a Major League championship in the past. So everybody who's fighting in this current championship, you are fighting for an exclusive helm, but also some extra mystery prize. Okay, I am scrolling through the chat to see if I can find any other questions that I missed.
They reckon it's a cape.
What's that?
They reckon it's a cape.
Oh, it's not a cape. It's not a cosmetic, actually. So, riddle me that.
Now I want to fight my way into the Major League just to see what it is.
Well, it would only go to those who have won the Major League Championship, so it is quite a high bar. So far, we only have 2 players who have won the Major Leagues so far, and we'll be adding a 3rd at the end of today. So we shall see what comes of that. Oh yeah, Boy Gabe 1 asked my opinion on his samurai fighting style. I played against Boy Gabe, and I believe that I got to fight against his samurai. I think I played Duelist, which is a somewhat advantageous matchup for me there. I don't even remember how it ended. I can't say I recall how that match went, but I'm pretty sure that Gabe won. So I'm going to say that was a very respectable samurai. I'm afraid you're going to have to remind me if there was a particular element of that fighting style you wanted to comment on. But sorry about that. Kai says that I leaked to him that it's a cape. No, I did not. That's fake news. Sorry, Kai. Chip asks, thoughts on the current Knight meta right now, E. We discussed this a little bit earlier, Electro and I. Basically, from what I have seen, it sounds like there's some concerns bubbling up from the community of certain techniques being overpowered or exploitative. And so I'm probably going to react to those, see if those seem unfun to play against and then nerf if so. I'm also considering a couple other changes to the way the Knights and possibly other sword-based classes reload the weapons. And, it's hard to know the impact, the level of impact there. It could be a complete transformation to the way that those classes are played. But honestly, I don't know ahead of time. Okay, we are hopping into a new match. We have Stop, also known as Go, versus Blatman. Proximo informs us this is likely our last match of this tournament, unless there's a tie. So, let's see how this goes. Very nicely color coordinated, I have to say.
It's almost a little sad that we don't have one final extra dramatic fight right at the end that we'd usually get with an elimination tournament.
It's true.
That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
It is nice for the players, though, who want to make sure that they can play all the way through and get a good number of rounds. Okay, it looks like Stop is getting us started with the melee attack. Threw out one arrow earlier, but has saved up energy for a big melee attack here. And man, that spinning staff, there's just no way for the Knight's Greatsword to block every single hit. But Blatman decides to get his revenge with a really well-timed ranged attack coming in very late there, and then an aggressive series of hits, a lot of them sneaking past, even getting some great double hits in against Stop's Monk, bringing Stop down to almost half health in one huge melee attack.
I think this is a good example of the feints I was mentioning. It's hard to see because of the frame rate of the stream, but it definitely appears to be, in some points, turning on a dime and then just going completely where it's not expected to go.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm seeing exactly what you're talking about. That is looking like an extremely effective, powerful technique there. Stop is trying to get some clever hits of their own. We saw him doing the sort of interesting double shots with the lob attack followed by a straight shot from the bow and arrow. But Blatman was able to block those. Those are tough to pull off even in the best of situations. Now Blatman going in, trying to get some last few hits. Might not have the energy to be able to make this a lengthy attack. Stop, though, was left with just a sliver of health with Blatman almost at half. I would not want to be Stop in this scenario, but oof. Big headshot from Stop. I think that is
arrows do a lot.
That's a dignity arrow right there, showing that he was not just going to take this lying down. Blatman, nevertheless, able to come in for the final blow and take that first round. So we'll see what bans come out at this point. Yeah, I'm seeing that feinting technique that you're talking about more and more. And I think I have a pretty good sense for what is causing that, or what is sort of enabling that from a physics perspective. But I don't want to spell it out too clearly, just because A, it's too technical, and B, I don't want to give any hints to people about other potential exploits.
Yeah, keeping how the physics works to a minimal is probably a smart idea to prevent people from being able to just analyze it and figure out what to do. And we have a Reaper mirror match, but there appears to be technical difficulties, and we're good.
Well, this is interesting, though. This is our fourth mirror match just that we've seen on the stream, and all four of them with different classes. So I'm actually thrilled. I love seeing mirror matches, and there's some mirror matches that are more rare. To be able to see the Monk mirror match, the Ninja mirror match, and then also this Knight and Reaper is a real treat. Blatman showing a really effective defense there. Defending Scythe versus Scythe can be really tricky. We're also seeing a fair number of ranged attacks coming through. And Blatman going for kind of a quick back and forth, sometimes harvesting style, but mixing it up, changing the angle several times, already able to land a good number of hits. Looked like an effective attack there.
I would say that Reaper is one of my favourite ranged projectiles in the game, just because of the uniqueness of how it works, and especially once you figure out how to stagger them and manipulate their distance to essentially send multiple at once by having some start further back or further forward than others.
As has been demonstrated by both of these players in their ranged attacks. Yeah, they're trying to get from multiple angles.
And I just honestly feel it can be very fun, even if it usually can't be very effective. And once again there, you can vary up, like that's a popular strategy of coming in with a melee attack at the same time as a ranged volley. And you can change the distance of your ranged volley to essentially change the timing of when you're going to hit versus the projectile.
Yeah, and I think players are able to sort of mix that up, try to stay unpredictable, and leave the opponent with too much to block at one time. So Blatman throws out a couple of ranged attacks, then goes in for a quick melee attack, but doesn't use up all of their energy. So it looks like, I'm not sure if they were trying to bait Stop into an attack by arresting their energy regen or what. But Stop does actually manage to recover all of their vulnerability by getting that extra damage in. So even though they are still on the back foot in terms of energy and health, they might be feeling better than they were a moment ago. They're still in the running here. And a lot of interesting, those kind of double-sided ranged attacks from Blatman. Stop able to block them perfectly, but Blatman comes in for the melee attack again, maybe attacking early to try to, get a hit in and stop Stop's energy regeneration, but as well doing significant amounts of damage.
That kind of strategy, he's left it a little too late because he's given Stop enough time to charge up all the way to half, and then Stop can just charge up a slightly bit further to chunk him down further.
The question is just, will Stop be able to use that energy to get enough damage in to even the fight out? And it looks like the answer is not quite. Blatman with a significant health advantage right now. It's going to be tough for Stop to be able to make that attack back. And yeah, Stop was not able to get the perfect defense, still alive and still recovering some health, but Blatman knows that they just have to survive this hit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Blat's definitely taking it a bit more defensive and cautious because he knows that Stop has some energy left, and if he were to charge up, there might have been a opportunity for Stop to have just finished him off. And that's the last hit.
Yeah, Blatman gave Applause a gracious victory, and Stop was able to actually nail him with a little bit of a ranged attack there. So interestingly, Blatman had to go in for that final attack and really needed to make that last hit. And Stop almost blocked it, almost stayed alive, and could have turned things around if they had been able to block that one last hit. But the Scythe Blade, it's just so long, was able to get around there and strike the finishing blow. So congratulations to Blatman. That was a solid finisher there. All right, so the Swiss tournament brackets and the current status is was just being shown up there on the stream. The fourth round is now ongoing. We'll see if there's any other rounds that we can hop into, but this is expected to be the final round unless we have a tiebreaker. So at this point, we'll just wait for results to come in, see what's happening. And if anybody else has any questions in the chat, please throw them my way. In the meantime, I'll just pick up on one of the thoughts that I was discussing earlier when asked about the current Knight meta. I mentioned this just before that round started, but I sort of cut myself off early, that I'm experimenting with a mechanic to make the Hanging Guard a little less useful, where basically changing sort of the angle of the resummoning plane, if that makes sense, so that it's not as advantageous to just keep your blade pointing downwards and covering the whole of your body. I don't want to go too far on that front because I want to make sure that reloading the weapons always feels consistent and predictable, something that's in your control. And I don't want to just sort of, always pick a strategy that is, the effective thing and then nerf it. But I do think that a lot of the sword type weapons would be more fun if the Hanging Guard were less dominant, which I think right now is maybe a little too dominant. And the interesting thing, I think, in terms of that effect on the meta is it going to make it so that the Knight especially is completely, is nerfed really hard in defense? If that's the technique that sort of keeps them on par with other classes and that gets nerfed, will they be able to keep up defense in other ways? And if not, possibly that the response would be another buff to the Knight's offense. So it remains to be seen how far these changes are going to go, and if those changes are implemented, how far the effect is going to go in terms of effect on the Knight meta. But it's possible that these minor changes will have very big effects on how those classes are played.
Are we out of just a triple check? We're done with all the matches now, yeah?
It is not a sure thing. It depends on how the matches go. Or Proximo, is that the case? Yeah, so we're still waiting on match results to come in. A tie is still possible, but we're all at this point used to waiting very long amounts of time for results to come in. So just now that we're practiced at it, we can just wait a little longer here. A couple more questions came up on the Twitch. Sorry, what was that?
I was going to ask my own question that crossed my mind.
Yeah, hit me.
What's your opinion on the recent surge in creative works that have happened in the community? As you've probably heard of Dyron Light, which is a 3-part series creepypasta made by different people of the community. But as of late, there was also Sync going around making a large amount of profile renders in Blender of everyone's in-game avatar, and that's inspired other people to do some drawings, etc., of their own. And some people have started to come up with characters for their backstories for their in-game personas, and so on.
Well, the short answer is I love it. I was a fan of any sort of fan fiction coming out, and I haven't seen everything that's been posted very recently, just because I've had my head down in the game. But with Sync 144's art, I think it's just amazing. I don't know, it's so cool looking, and I haven't given him enough credit, and I still need to contact him. But I've had sort of a picture in my mind of trying to commission him to make some portraits or art to integrate into a new trailer, because man, the Iron Lights trailer needs to get updated. So yeah, I was hoping to collect some new footage and then do some like cool transition cuts to those portraits to introduce different classes.
I also just want to say super quick, Rocket, the way you can find Dying Lights is literally just type in the search term into the search bar in Google. And not in Google, into the Discord, and you can find people have always mentioned the specific word when they post the link to their works on it. So you can find all 3 entries just by looking through that list of searches for it. And it isn't that long of a list, it isn't mentioned that often.
And this is 1 week after Halloween, so I think it still counts as being a timely read.
I was thinking about trying to make a Dying Lights 4 or an Iron Fright, but I never got around to it in the end. Maybe
No
next
worries.
Halloween.
It would be most welcome. And if anybody's interested in other community-made art, and including some of the stuff that we were just talking about, check out the Iron Lights Media channel on the Discord. It looks like there's a good amount of recently posted Iron Lights fan art as well. So, man, I got to start like tweeting these. These are awesome. Well done, everybody. And I really like, I'm seeing some that are sort of, about the level of art that I am capable of. So, yeah, I think Numo 500. Yeah, that's. I think he's copying my style there. Anyway, I wanted to answer a couple of other questions. What was it? There they are. Cosmic Archer 21 asks, could a Warhammer be a possible class? Yes, a Warhammer could be a possible class. It's something that has been on our list and something that we've wanted to work on for a while. It's a tricky class to work on, just because the heavier weapons that have sort of more momentum and swing to them, because they're harder to control, making them feel satisfying is kind of tricky. And also the sort of long hafted weapons, they tend to be trickier to block with. So we'll have to figure out, solutions for that. But it is something that we are working on. BoyGay1 asks, what do you think of a spear weapon in the game? There is, of course, a certain kind of spear weapon in the game that's only available on the AIs. We have been talking about doing a spear or trident style weapon as a playable class, but there are a lot of sort of tricky things with that as well, like first of all, figuring out how to block effectively with it. Secondly, how to make it swingable versus thrustable. Those can actually be very tricky, just because if you prioritize one over the other, it can really change the way the class feels. And we don't want it to be something where it just feels wrong or too sluggish, unless you're using it the quote unquote right way. So there's a lot to figure out there. Chip asks, oh wait, sorry, what's that, Proximo? Okay, so
I want to rapid fire go through these last couple of questions. Where's the D&D Iron Lights edition coming out? I am tempted to try to run an Iron Lights D&D session for the Discord at some point. I still haven't put any thought into it whatsoever, but I'm tempted to do it. We'll stop be playing again. We're actually just about to announce the results because all of the matches are done.
That is right. So it sounds like Proximo has informed us the matches are now all complete. And so we have a winner. So we're on the edge of our seats. I don't even know who the winner is. I would do an actual drum roll, but I lack a snare, unfortunately. All right, and we have the final listing of the points up on the board. Our winner is Toaster Chan with a sweep, all 4 wins. So congratulations, Toaster. You are our 3rd Major League champion. You will be winning access to the champion helm, as well as a mystery prize that will be awarded to you and all of the previous champions in the future. Well fought. That is a very convincing win. Congratulations as well to everybody else who fought in this tournament. You can see all of their names there on the left. These are all players, of course, who have won the top 3 places in a minor league tournament. So they are the cream of the crop. They are our top players, all very capable fighters. And it's great seeing them all being able to fight up, on stream, together. Fantastic matches. So thanks everybody for participating, and congrats especially to Toaster for finishing with a perfect win. All right, I think that will be all for us today. I wanted to throw out another thank you to Proximo for running this tournament behind the scenes, and to Electro Spaghetti, who has been co-commentating with me. Electro, anything you want to say on your way out?
Other than I look forward to hopefully commentating on some more streams, and I'm always looking forward towards the next one, which I believe is probably going to be next week. Yeah, next Saturday. I'm just reaching out now.
That is right. There's a minor league tournament next Saturday, so anybody who's watching who has not already won one of those, join the minor leagues. You can make it into the majors and win a $30 prize for finishing in the top 3. You are welcome to join. Information, of course, is available on the Iron Lights Discord on the tournament's announcements channel.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, then. Thank you so much.
Yeah. See you all possibly, maybe at the minor league. I might actually enter. I might commentate if you are happy to let me.
We would be happy to have you in either respect. So we'll see you next week. And thanks everybody for watching. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.